What I really want to talk about in that decade was the World Trade Organization gets established in 95 with the TRIPS agreement. Now, the TRIPS agreement allowed for it's the trade-related aspect of intellectual property, and it governs patent law. Patent law gives originator companies 20 years of market exclusivity, and it was put in place in order to incentivize drug discovery. Okay, so they get this market exclusivity, which then is a financial incentive to develop drugs. Now, patent law is a double-edged sword, because on the one side, it incentivizes drug discovery. On the other side, it inhibits access to medicines. Okay, because there's patent law in place. And that was a big problem in developing countries. But the Doha Declaration in 2001, which is a legally binding interpretation of the TRIPS agreement, basically said that countries can circumvent patent law in the context of access to medicines for for public health reasons. And so it was between TRIPS and Doha that we were able to get 30 million people onto ARVs to date. I just want to fast forward here a little bit because I know we've got limited time. Unitaid gets invented. Unitaid focuses on market dynamics. So it's a small group of people, not a lot of money, but had a huge impact. Decreased the price of pediatric ARVs by 90%. Decreased the price of the cartridges that you use in Gene Experts by at least half, which meant that suddenly you could have point-of-care diagnosis of MDR-TB in remote parts of the world. And if you can diagnose people, you can treat people. And if you put people on treatment, you interrupt transmission. So it was a very, very powerful thing. So coming to the rescue, and I was very pleased to see yesterday that there was a talk about artificial intelligence. There is new technology which I believe will be a game changer in this space. And there isn't time, once again, for me to talk about each of these. But what I do want to do is illustrate how incredibly impactful some of these can be. One of the numbers that I read was that by 2050, the expectation was that this would cost the global economy in the region of $100 trillion. And I remember thinking to myself, well, how much is $100 trillion? Because it's very difficult to imagine the magnitude of a trillion. Our brains don't get around that. So I did a little bit of calculations just to sort of try and illustrate it. And I came up with this. 1 million seconds is about the beginning of the month. That's how big 1 million seconds is. 1 billion seconds was when I was at medical school. 1 trillion seconds is 30,000 years ago when humans lived in caves with Neanderthal man and they were hunting mammoths. That's the difference between 1 billion and 1 trillion.